There you go. So welcome everyone to this special Can Be Well webinar. We are very excited to have Cheryl Hanna here, and she is sharing Grief, the Great Reset That No One Wants. And we're going to be talking about the process of grief and working with some of the tools that she brings to us from Natural BioEnergetics Global. So I'm Michelle Greenwell, and I'm current president of Can Be Well. And before we begin today, we want to do a land acknowledgement and just to introduce where everyone is at. Because we're coming from live on video, we have the Indigenous peoples of Canada, or Turtle Island, that we can acknowledge. And we just want to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relations between nations and to educate our own understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. Mm-hmm. So what I would love for you to do, for those that are here, is to put into the chat box two things. So one would be the land that you reside upon, if you know the name, and then how many generations your family may have been present on the land or in Canada, whichever it is. And if you're from the UK, then you've got what's happening there. So I'll just let you type that in. And what I'll do is I'll just say mine as you're typing. So I'm Michelle Greenwell, and I reside on the Mi'kma'ki and the Maliseet area of Unama'ki, which is Cape Breton Island, and I live in Mabu. And I'm a fourth generation Canadian, with my family having actually started in the West. So I'm the first one to head east. All right. And as people are still typing, we'll go from there. Our intention today is to provide a platform for our partner organizations to be able to highlight within our membership, and also to enjoy and share the vital role that we have in developing and sharing the power of our courses, publications, tools, and techniques. And we're very happy to be able to highlight Natural BioEnergetics today. So we have Prince George, BC, and Allison is Kwanlin Dun. Her dad's side since the 1800s, and not sure on her mom's side. All right. And Cheryl's 1800s in New Brunswick from Scotland. Wow.
And I'm on the Clele Tene, but I can't spell Clele Tene name. So
perfect. Okay. All right. So with that, I'll give you the introduction for Cheryl. So Cheryl's had a lifelong interest in natural healing methods that go back to her teens, which is amazing. She married young, raised 12 children. They span from age 19 now to 42. And this one, I was so surprised, Cheryl, because you're not old enough. Grandbaby number 24 due in April. That's so amazing. You have 4 stepdaughters from the second marriage, and you were a homeschooling, crunchy granola mom. You've been a doula, a midwife, and amateur herbalist all along the way. What I wanted to share was that in 2002, she was introduced to kinesionics, and the founder, K.P. Khalsa, studying under Dr. George Goodheart. And Dr. George Goodheart was the precursor to John Thie to Touch for Health. So kinesionics was a synthesis of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic herbalism, and it married to the applied kinesiology line of information, and as a means of identifying the body's most needs and the herbal remedies that would support innate healing. And in 2010, I guess that's when you discovered Natural BioEnergetics and working with Linda Easthouse. Linda sits on our board for Can Be Well, been instrumental in a lot of the transformations of the last few years. And Cheryl has been mentoring with Linda since that time, and she is now qualified as a natural bioenergetic specialist, an instructor, and she serves on the Natural BioEnergetics Global Board of Directors. So, Cheryl, thank you for coming forward and talking about this incredible topic and a hard topic too. And we appreciate also that you've offered it to Can Be Well as a fundraiser, and that provides us with the opportunity to develop more of our programming. And we're very grateful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So with that, I'll hand it over to you and let you start the webinar.
Well, when I was initially asked to do this, I said, can you put together a presentation? And I said, sure, I could do that. And then every time I thought about doing a presentation, putting together a PowerPoint and all that sort of stuff, I just went, ugh. And truth be told, when you start reading, if you've experienced grief and you start reading about grief, guess what happens to you? Whatever you focus on expands, right? Something we all know. And I ended up feeling worse. And besides, who really enjoys looking at PowerPoints? Anybody? Not really. So I thought instead of me coming on here and telling you a bunch of stuff and talking at you, I thought I would just do what I normally do when I get together with a group of people that I'm working with and just start asking some questions. So one of the questions I'd like to ask is, how many of you have experienced a loss of some kind in your life? Yeah. So I want this to be interactive. So what I'd like you to do is, if you have something that you'd like to share, please feel free to unmute yourself and share what kind of loss that you've experienced. Donna, do you have something?
Um, I can share definitely. I've had a few traumatic losses in my life. One was my boyfriend when we were in ninth grade. He completed suicide. That was a huge loss for me. And then the loss of my mom and the loss of my grandmother and the recent loss of my dad. So, and the loss of a childhood. So a lot of things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Do anybody else want to share something? Allison?
Sure. I lost my mom a year and a half ago. Not this past Christmas, the Christmas before. And then I just lost my dad in November.
Oh,
Those are the big ones.
I'm very sorry. Judy, did you have something that you wanted to share?
I don't know where to start. My mother died when I was 18, I guess, almost, and she was only 52. And that was pretty awful because it took a year to occur. And I didn't really miss her until I had my own children. And that's when my grief began, I think. I was in some kind of a wall of protection till then. And probably one that hit me the most. Well, I had three brothers that all died tragically. One at 10 and a half of meningitis. And I was very young when that happened. And one, when he was 50, he froze to death. And another one who drowned when he was 24. And I remember that well because I was breastfeeding a 6-week-old baby. And I give it credit for developing colic because I think I cried all night long and holding him, I knew better, but I didn't do better because I was a nurse by then.
Yeah.
And the most recent one, some sisters-in-law that I thought highly of, but the most recent one that I mind the most still, and it was in 2016, is my brother-in-law, who was pretty much my best friend. And he lived a long, good life, so I shouldn't resent it, but I still am definitely in grieving state about that death.
Yeah. I'm very sorry. So those things, even though they take place, and some of them are recent for us and some of them are years ago, right? And we can still feel the pain and even some of the suffering that goes with it. Just to give you one of the reasons that I was asked to do this presentation is I lost my husband 20 months ago from cancer. And I'd lost friends before and lost my grandparents and some uncles and aunts that I'd been close to. But I found that when I lost my husband, it hit me in a way that none of the others had. And part of my so-called recovery was to actually run a grief group, partly because I wanted to do the work for myself, and I just invited other people to join me in the journey. And I learned a lot out of that. And so part of the reason why I'm here tonight is just to kind of share what the experience is like to use natural bioenergetics to help us lessen the suffering. I don't think grief ever goes away. And I know I'm just new into the journey. But I was watching a video the other day, and one of the things that the person said was that grief is the sign of somebody that you've loved. And if that is true, I don't want to lose grief because I don't want to lose that love. And I brought a box of Kleenex with me because I tend to cry easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask a few more questions. And then what I'd like to do is kind of conduct a group session that is similar to what I do when I'm working with my grief group, so that you can experience for yourself what it's like. So the next question I want to ask is, what have you found to be the most unexpected and surprising thing that you've experienced in grief that caught you off guard, or maybe you didn't understand what happened?
I think for me, it was seeing the person, like all the deaths pretty much, was seeing them, and then the next day they were gone. And it's like, how do you even prepare for that?
Yeah.
Like, just all of a sudden they're there, you're talking to them, and then never again the next day or the next hour.
Yes. I know for myself, I think one of the things that I was so surprised about was the physical shock that I felt. Like, and that same sort of incredulity, how could they not be here? I still, I'm close to 2 years in and I'm still going, how could you not be here? I also wanted to mention that grief is not just something that's limited to losing people through death. You can experience grief over losing your job or your career. Some people experience it when they lose a community. I've experienced both of those. I was excommunicated along with a bunch of other people. In fact, my entire congregation was excommunicated, so I lost that whole community. And it happened at the same time that my first marriage failed. And I'll tell you, I cried more over the loss of that church community than I did over the loss of my first husband. In fact, I didn't cry over the loss of my first husband. There was nothing to cry over with him. But that loss of community really hit me hard, and I couldn't bear the thought of going into another church or being part of another community that might leave me again or kick me out. So it took me a long time to process through that. I've had people who have lost their children through custody battles, and that's a terrible grief. And then, of course, when you lose people through tragic circumstances and you didn't have an opportunity to say goodbye, or you discover things about them that you didn't know. Like I've had some women who discovered after their husbands had passed that they'd been unfaithful to them. So they not only lost their husband, they lost the whole concept of what they thought their marriage had been. So loss can show up in an awful lot of ways, and it can create quite complex emotions to try and work through. And it's not nice and linear. You know, we've probably all heard about the 5 stages of grief, and none of it goes in a nice and easy stage. It doesn't, you find yourself reaching a place of resolution, and the next thing you know, it's back again, maybe from a different angle. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check my balance. And then I'm going to check in with the group. Now, I'm going to just suggest that if you don't want, sometimes when we do this work, it brings up strong emotions. And if you'd like to cry or feel an emotion, but you don't necessarily want people to see you doing it, please feel free to shut off your video. I'm going to keep mine on because I'm running this thing, but don't be surprised if you see me crying. And of course, you know that when we do this work, there's often a lot of sighing and yawning and stuff. I'm going to probably be yawning my face off as people start to shift their energy and stuff. But before we start, is there anything in particular that somebody would like to have addressed? If you could fix one thing tonight, what would you like to have worked on?
Cheryl, had to, I lost a friendship. It was a very close friendship, but it was a huge kind of betrayal, and it really, really hurt. And I ended up having to block this lady on every social media outlet that I knew she was on, and every time I think, well, I've done all the work to get over that, it comes back and bites me, and it still hurts. And that was over a year ago, because she was like a member. She was like a sister in some ways.
Yeah.
And if I could get over that, that would really help hugely.
Okay. Thank you, Charlotte. Anybody else want to add something?
This would be a little bit different. I was just thinking about Can Be Well and our transferring from Can Ask to Can Be Well, and the loss of the stability and the friendships that happened in that process. And I think it would be lovely to be able to shift the energy around that.
Okay.
As we go into the 50th anniversary of Touch for Health US organization, which we came from, it would be lovely to be at a conference where everybody had some resolution to that.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, not every loss is one that's permanent. Sometimes we lose people in this life that are still present in this life, and that can hurt just as badly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And there was, it was a hard time, very hard time. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to ask if there's a title that we're going to use, and there is. Single word phrase. There's a phrase we're going to use. Gerund phrase, being phrase, a being phrase. Being dismissed. Okay, so being dismissed is the title of this work. So I'm going to use that to kind of organize. Everything's going to be geared to dealing with some aspects of that. So being dismissed can refer to lost friendships, and lost people and lost situations. So in order to accomplish that, are we using just one approach? No, we're going to use multiple approaches. The first thing you're going to do, not. So we're going to do something called a meta-analysis. And when we do meta-analysis, we're addressing glitches in the subtle body that are preventing organs and tissues and cells from working properly. So anytime we do a bioenergetic correction, we're restoring proper information and function back into the electrical system so the body can heal itself. Not 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So subtle body 5, which is where we generate our behavior. And something from here to here. We're going to work on integration. Currently, the integration for this group is running at 10, 20, 30, 40, 30 to 35, 35, 36, 37%. We're going to raise that. Section. We're going to do a set of corrections called I Feel I Am. So there's going to be 2 sets of these. So the first one is always going to be the I feel part. And I'm just going to I feel furious. All right, so what I would like you to do is think about where you're feeling furious. Something in your life that's just making you really upset. Maybe it's the way somebody's spoken to you or dismissed you. Or dismissed your grief. That's a common one that you hear, people saying to you, aren't you over that yet? I feel furious. Hmm. So something you should know is whenever we work on something in natural bioenergetics, we're always working on something that is a stressor. And we embody our emotions and our experiences, and they become triggers, right? So what we're doing is, even though it's uncomfortable, I encourage my clients to really feel whatever it is that they have in them, that and because what we're going to do is we're actually going to process it out of the system so it's no longer operating in us. Feel furious. So furious, full of fury, violent passion or rage, extremely angry or enraged. Now, none of us look like that, right? And yet when I test it for myself, like it's when I'm just focusing on myself, I feel furious. I'm not actually consciously feeling furious with anything right now, but what I do know is it is causing a stressor in my system that needs to be corrected. And it may come to you later in the middle of the night. That's usually when it, oh yeah, that's what I'm mad about. Curious. Is this one complete and robust for everyone on all levels and every aspect? Is there any benefit to thinking about this one longer? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next statement. I am committed. I am committed. So where are you feeling stress about being committed in your life? I have a few projects I should be committed to. I can't seem to get the commitment to rise. Are you afraid of committing to relationships because of the pain that could come from losing them? Committed. I'm going to throw out the word here, betrayal. One of the things that will keep us from wanting to be committed is if we've experienced a sense of betrayal. I'm committed. Is this one complete and robust for everyone on all levels and every aspect? Is there any benefit to thinking about this longer? Okay. I feel let down. Think about where you might be feeling let down by a situation, by people, by organizations, by yourself. For a lot of people, they do the shoulda, woulda, coulda thing after a loss. I remember thinking to myself, especially in this line of work, I didn't do enough. I could have stopped my husband from dying if I'd only worked harder or if I'd worked at all. And we had a really good marriage. He was an amazing man. And I spent months beating myself up over not doing enough, letting him down, letting myself down. And it wasn't till later I found a notebook where I'd actually done all this work on him and completely forgotten I'd done that work. I'm like, oh, I did work on him. But it messes with your head, right? If only I'd been a better friend. If only I'd said this or done that, right? Feel let down. One of the things that we lose is our own identity because we tend to identify ourselves in relation to the people that we're close to. And when we lose them, if you lose a parent, well, whose child are you now? If you lose a partner or a spouse, I'm no one's wife. You lose a child, I'm not the parent anymore. So there's a loss of that relationship, and it's a loss of how you view yourself that needs to be reconstructed. feel let down. This one complete and robust for everyone in all levels and every aspect. Any reason why not? Any benefit to holding this longer? Okay. Last one. I am in tune with being creative. I am in tune with being creative. I'm in tune with being creative. Not quite done. How many of you are having difficulty being creative right now? Yeah. Me too. I've had projects that I've been meaning to get to, and I just haven't been able to do it lately. Excuse me. It's shipped in here for us. I am in tune with being creative. It's a little bit better. Is that complete and robust for everyone on all levels and every aspect? Yes. Any reason why not? Any benefit to thinking about more? Good. Okay. Just going to ask, is there another factor that we can do? Let's see. Redo it. Okay, we're going to do one more factor here to help us. Here to here. Okay, I'm going to give you some psychological sentences now to think about. And I'm writing all this stuff down because out of habit, because that's what we do. This work. It's the right sentence. Okay, I need to adjust the sentence a little bit. You want the first part? Yes. So what's the rest of it? Something. Concepts. Something through. Speech. Is that the right word? Is it similar? Okay, I have to find the right word here to say one. Wanting more is giving. Wanting more is giving. Now again, sounds like a lovely sentence, right? But there's a stress around it. Wanting more is giving. Hard to do if you're feeling exhausted or drained or numb. Wanting more is giving. It's a sentence. Others. So for those of you who are interested in this sort of thing, this is actually affecting the bladder kidney meridians, and the solar plexus energy organ is congested around this particular one. Um, it's okay, Judy. We're recording this, so if you want to come back to it later, the energy is actually captured in the recording. So those of you who are watching this after we've finished, you'll actually be able to get the corrections off the recording. Feeling some deep exhaustion with this one from some of you. Just the thought of giving more when you're stretched. Wanting more is giving. Is this one complete and robust for everyone? On all levels, at every aspect, any reason why not? Any benefit to thinking about it longer? Is there a second one to do? Is there another one to do? Anything that we need to do or test after this? Anything we need for stabilization? Energy permission to stop. Okay. So that kind of gives you a small taste of what it's like to be part of a group correction. And what are the reasons, the benefits of working together in a group that we have discovered is that we actually become quantumly entangled with one another. So you not only pick up and process whatever it is that you're bringing to the table and how you're approaching this particular item that we're thinking about, you're also picking up from everybody else their aspects, which seems to be broadening and deepening the actual correction. And the other thing is that when it comes to healing, especially around grief, it really does benefit to be in a group. It seems to heal. Things seem to heal better in a group, especially when you're walking with people who get it, who understand why it's taking you so long, or why you might be not doing as well as you thought you would be, or just having the support of other people who have been where you are and who can encourage you that, yeah, there is another day and it is possible to get up and carry on. The reason I'm mentioning all this is I am going to be starting another group coming up the end of this month on the 20th. I'll be starting 2 sessions, one designed to work for people in Eastern Canada. So that'll be starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon if you're in the Pacific time zone, which would make it 6 o'clock in Atlantic Canada, 5 o'clock in Eastern, and so on. And then I'll be starting a second one the same day that will start at 6 p.m. Pacific time for those on the West Coast. I do have a limit of 10 people. That seems to be a good number of people to work together. We also have a Signal chat group where people are able to process together and support one another during the week. And many of those who have gone through my groups have really found it to be of tremendous benefit just to have that group support there to show love and care and attention to one another. So thus endeth the lesson.
Thank you, Cheryl.
You're very welcome, Donna.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any questions or any comments that anybody would like to, ask before we wrap this up for this evening?
I would just say I've got pages of notes, Cheryl, and it was really an interesting process of discovery of working past all these emotions that happened for the way the group split in half. And how do you come back together? What is the way to do that? And so one is, to be more open and outreaching in a group setting where I'm going to be running into people, and those people who are part of CanBeWell who'll be running into other members that aren't CanBeWell members at the
Right.
conference. But the second part actually pulled everything into a global transformation piece. So it was no longer even about the fact that there was a split, we didn't really get along, we had to go in different directions, we don't know how to come back, all the
Right.
things that you did bring up.
Yeah.
But then there was this other piece, one is standing as Canadians and supporting, which is going to be interesting, crossing the border into the US for the conference.
Yeah.
But the second part is leading to this idea of this global transformation, and that we're all there for the same final goal, which is helping all of us to elevate. And so that was an interesting revelation through the whole process, and then to think on that higher level. And I know that doesn't pertain to everybody who's dealing with the grief that they're dealing with, but from CanBeWell's perspective, thank you for the opportunity tonight to really look at this. I didn't realize how much was holding us back,
Yeah.
and how much easier and how much more open, hopefully, our members will be, but also those outside of CanBeWell, to start conversations. And
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. One of the reasons I love this work is because of the transformation that takes place that helps us get past ourselves and helps us to be open to other people. And when we can learn to love one another and not let our differences or even our own perceptions of, a lot of times we have perceptions of how things are going, and it's our perceptions that get in the way of allowing us to see clearly and to appreciate one another. And so that's really awesome.
Mhm.
And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, because I didn't anticipate that for this evening.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you. I had no idea that I was still so angry at my mother, and so angry about such a wasted life.
Yeah,
And so it was really interesting to kind of look at that. She'd written some memoirs, and I thought, finally I'm going to get some answers. And then I read it, and I had no answers, and it was just all about how proud she was of how many men she'd slept with in her life.
oh,
and so it didn't answer questions. It gave me a little bit of an insight into her life a bit, but no, it was not that revelation that I had wanted.
yeah,
And so now it's just left me being even more angry about how she lived her life.
yeah,
And intellectually, I know she did the best she could, and she
yeah,
didn't have the tools that we have, and like all of those things, I get that.
yeah,
But the emotional aspect, of course, right, gets stuck. And so it was interesting, right, just to be able to even acknowledge how much anger I have, right? So yeah, no, it was very good. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I'll just say this. Sometimes when we do this work, it's like taking a pot bottle and you shake it up, and then you pull the top up, and all this stuff kind of bubbles up from the top, the bottom, and you're like, what the heck do I do with this now? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to say, if any of you find yourself in that position and you're having difficulty managing it, please reach out. I think, Michelle, you probably put some of my information out there if somebody needs to, because we don't want to leave you in a distressing situation. Okay. So if you need help processing that, just give me a shout. Okay. Well, this is your show here, Michelle, so I don't know how you want to wrap this up.
I know sometimes that, the comments, right? It takes a minute to kind of figure out what you would want to say or however, so I didn't want to jump in too soon. But if everybody has said what they'd like to say, then that's awesome. And I hope, Charlotte, thank you for coming in the middle of the night. And I hope that gives you a good sleep now. And Cheryl, really, this was a fabulous opportunity, and sometimes we just don't sit to observe the process. And thank you for opening the space for us to just be a part of what a session is like.
Yes.
And to be present with the session and the space, because a lot of times too, we're kind of busy with our tools, but you really had us sit, and that also is very helpful. So,
well, thank you for this opportunity. It was lovely to be here. Thank you.
Beautiful. So I'm going to stop the recording here, and for those people that maybe are watching the rewinding of it, just to be able to I hope you didn't rush through anything and not sit with the time that was spent with each part, because that might be when you might have been busy doing something else, but to actually stop and take the time to really be present. So if you didn't do that, please go back in the recording and take the time, because it's very valuable with what you might discover. So thank you, Cheryl.